The initial buzz from Marcus's groomsman invitation had been infectious. Ben, my steady, easygoing husband, had practically vibrated with excitement. "Marcus asked me to be a groomsman," he'd announced, his face split into a wide grin. "Can you believe it? My oldest friend." I'd smiled, genuinely happy for him. Marcus had always been a whirlwind of grand gestures and enthusiastic plans. And Ben, ever the calm center, had orbited him for decades. A wedding I'd thought would be fun. A few events, a suit, a nice gift. We'd budgeted mentally, vaguely picturing a few $100s here and there. Manageable. Fun. The first crack in that easygoing facade appeared, not with a bang, but with a slow, grinding 3-hour drive. Marcus, ever the planner, had insisted on a specific tailor, the best in the state, located deep in the affluent heart of a city we rarely visited. "It's mandatory, Ben," he declared on the phone, his voice already buzzing with wedding fever. "They only do custom fittings for our wedding party. It's an experience." Ben, bless his loyal, go with the flow heart, had readily agreed. "Sounds good, man. Alara's coming too. She wants to see the place." And so, Saturday morning found us in our sensible crossover, the miles melting away under a surprisingly cheerful sky. For the first hour the conversation was light, punctuated by Ben's anecdotes about Marcus's past escapades. I even found myself humming along to the radio. But as the familiar urban sprawl gave way to tree-lined avenues and homes that looked more like small castles, a subtle unease began to creep into my stomach. This wasn't just fancy. This was a different league of fancy. The tailor's shop itself was a testament to the fact. Polished oak gleamed under soft, recessed lighting. Heavy velvet drapes framed tall windows, and the air smelled faintly of expensive wool and something indefinably luxurious. A serene, hushed atmosphere prevailed, broken only by the low murmur of conversations and the crisp rustle of fabric. Marcus, already there, bounded over, practically radiating excitement. Karen, his equally effervescent fiancée, a vision in an understated, but clearly designer dress, by his side. "Ben, my man, you made it." Marcus clapped Ben on the back, pulling him into a man hug. "This is it, dude. The magic happens here." A trim man in a pristine suit, presumably the tailor, glided over, tape measure draped elegantly over his shoulder. He led them to a private fitting room, where several tuxedos hung on display. As Ben, Marcus and the other groomsmen chatted and laughed, the tailor began his measurements, running his hands over fine worsteds and delicate silks. I stood slightly to the side, observing, trying to tamp down the rising tide of something akin to dread. Then I saw it. Tucked into the collar of an impeccably cut tuxedo, a small white tag. My eyes, almost against my will, zeroed in on the price. $500. $500 for one tuxedo rental. And below it, in smaller print, required shoes, patent leather, specific style. $150. My stomach clenched. A cold knot formed just beneath my ribs. I swallowed, trying to dislodge it. $500 for the tux, another one, $50 for shoes. For a rental, we could buy a good quality suit. One Ben could wear again for that price. This was a single-use garment, mandated down to the very shoes. Ben, oblivious to my internal turmoil, beamed as the tailor adjusted a sleeve. "Feels great, man." He chuckled, striking a pose in the mirror. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Told you these guys were the best. You're going to look sharp, buddy." As the final measurements were taken, and the initial paperwork for the order was being filled out, detailing the required accessories, the pickup dates, the payment schedule, I finally let out a quiet sigh. So quiet I barely heard it myself. But Ben, turning to flash me a conspiratorial grin, caught it. His brow furrowed slightly, just for a second, before smoothing out. "What's up, babe?" he murmured, leaning in. I saw the price," I whispered back, my gaze flicking meaningfully towards the tag. He followed my gaze, then quickly looked away, his easygoing smile returning a little too quickly. He shrugged, a dismissive flick of his hand. "Oh, that. Yeah, it's Marcus, you know how he is." His voice was low, almost apologetic, but firm in its dismissal. you know how he is." Those 5 words hung in the air, weighted with years of friendship, loyalty, and a subtle expectation that Marcus's whims were simply to be accommodated. I had to bite back the retort that wanted to jump from my tongue. "Yes, I know how he is. But Marcus isn't footing our bills." My mind instantly flashed to the nearly $200 we'd already spent just to get here. Gas for a 3-hour round trip. A quick, overpriced lunch on the way. The vague fitting fee Marcus had mentioned, now neatly folded into the larger sum. $200 just to drive here and try on a tuxedo that cost more than our monthly grocery budget. The crack in my easygoing facade, once a hairline fracture, had just widened. And this, I knew with a chilling certainty, was only the beginning. The tailor, now beaming, presented a velvet-lined tray of accessories. Of course, for a perfect ensemble, we recommend the bespoke cufflinks, perhaps a silk pocket square to complement Karen's dress, and these elegant suspenders for optimal drape. Optional, he'd said. But the way Marcus and Karen were nodding enthusiastically made them feel anything but. My mental tally clicked higher. $50 for the cufflinks, $35 for the pocket square. Suddenly the rental was approaching the cost of a decent suit again, one Ben could actually keep. "Ben, you won't believe it," Marcus announced, pulling Ben aside, his voice a stage whisper. "Karen's parents booked dinner for all the groomsmen and their partners tonight. At the Grand Oak, you know, the place with the Michelin star? And they got us rooms at the Astor, walking distance from here. All on them." Ben's eyes widened. "Seriously? That's amazing, man." He turned to me, already buzzing. "See, babe? Free dinner, free hotel. I told you it wouldn't be all bad." My blood ran cold. Free? Nothing was ever truly free. We'd still need gas for the inevitable return trip tomorrow, breakfast on the road, and the sheer mental exhaustion of another full day away from home. The $200 already spent felt like a pittance compared to the snowball effect I could now see forming. Later, in the opulent lobby of the Astor, waiting for Marcus and Karen to join us for the free dinner, I found myself doing the math again. Even if dinner and the hotel room were genuinely covered, the indirect costs, the lost weekend time, the mileage on our car, the energy it was draining from us, felt immense. This wasn't a quick jaunt, it was an entire Saturday swallowed whole. And now a Sunday morning too. "Ben," I began, my voice deliberately soft, "I'm really happy for Marcus, I am, but this is adding up. The travel, the tux, all these optional bits. It's a lot more than we talked about." He squeezed my hand, a familiar gesture meant to soothe. I know, babe. But it's almost over, just one more big trip after this, for the bachelor party maybe, then the actual wedding. It's Marcus, you know how he is. He wouldn't ask us to do anything we couldn't handle." His placid assurance was like oil on a fire. He cared, I knew that. But his conflict-averse nature seemed to blind him to the stark reality of our budget, our savings. My protective streak, usually reserved for our future plans, flared hotter. This wasn't just about dollars and cents anymore. This was about our resources, our precious time, being chipped away, not for genuine mutual celebration, but for someone else's idea of a perfect experience. The knot in my stomach tightened, a grim premonition of the even bigger financial and emotional battles yet to come. The knot in my stomach tightened, a grim premonition of the even bigger financial and emotional battles yet to come. I was right. 2 weeks later, a thick, glossy envelope landed on our doormat. It was the wedding shower invitation, heavy with pre-printed registry details for 2 separate high-end department stores. My eyes scanned the suggested gift range: designer kitchenware, luxury linens, a stand mixer that cost more than our first car payment. "Oh, great," I muttered, tossing it onto the coffee table. Ben, engrossed in a sports game, barely looked up. "What's up, babe?" "The shower invite," I said, picking it up again. "It's in upstate New York. Another trip, another hotel, another expensive gift." I tapped the registry details. "They're asking for a lot." He finally paused the game. "It's just a shower, Alara. We can do a small gift." A small gift from this registry is still $100, minimum, plus gas, potentially food, and another half-day of travel. We just spent a fortune on the tux rental and the accessories Marcus insisted on. And the free dinner and hotel were still a whole Saturday we lost. I pulled out my phone, already opening our banking app. "Look, We've already sunk almost $1,000 into this wedding, and we haven't even bought their actual wedding gift yet. My idea was, we send a thoughtful card, maybe a small personal gift later, something not from the registry. No need to go all the way up there just for a shower. Ben's easygoing demeanor visibly stiffened. No, Alara, that's not how it works. It's the shower. Marcus will notice if we don't show up. It's part of the whole groomsman thing. And what would we say? We'd say we love them, we're celebrating from afar, and we'll get them something special. People do that, Ben, especially when they've already committed to the wedding itself and a bachelor party. My voice, though calm, had an edge to it. This was our first real argument about the wedding, and the injustice of it was starting to burn. This isn't about being there for Marcus, it's about participating in a series of increasingly elaborate and expensive events that are draining our savings. We are not an ATM for their perfect experience. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It just feels rude, like we're not supporting them. Is our financial stability not worth supporting? I countered, my voice rising slightly. Is our time together not worth protecting? We're already stretched thin. The silence hung for a moment, heavy with unspoken frustration. Finally he sagged. Fine, he conceded, his voice barely a whisper. A card then. And a small gift later. But he's going to notice. The guilt radiating off him was palpable, making my hard-won relief feel bittersweet. Just as the shower drama began to settle, the next bombshell dropped. The details for the bachelor and bachelorette trips arrived. Karen's bachelorette was a weekend in Miami. Flights, luxury hotel, spa days, and VIP club access. Marcus's bachelor party was a 4-day deep-sea fishing trip off the coast of Mexico. Flights, charter fees, resort accommodation, and all-inclusive drinks. The estimated cost for Ben's trip alone was well over $2,000. I stared at the email on our laptop screen, numb. Ben, look at this. He leaned over, his eyes widening with each line item. Mexico? 4 days? Holy hell. We cannot afford this, Ben, I stated, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, because any emotion would have tipped me into outright rage. We simply cannot, not after everything else. We're still recovering from the down payment for our house. We have other goals, other plans. But it's Mexico, Ilara. It's going to be epic. Marcus has been planning this for months. He looked at me, a desperate plea in his eyes. Can't we just make it work? Maybe just for 2 days? Or I can cut back on something else? No, I said firmly. I pulled up our budget spreadsheet on the screen, the numbers stark and unforgiving. Look, the tux, the accessories, the travel for the fitting, the pre-wedding dinner, the upcoming wedding gift, the gas, the time off work. We're already looking at close to $2,000 for their wedding before these trips, adding another $2,000 plus. Lost wages for you taking 4 days off is insane. It sets us back months, Ben. Months where we can't save for X, or pay down Y, or even just relax without watching every single penny. It's a quarter of our emergency fund gone. For someone else's party. The argument was tense, punctuated by the click of my keyboard, as I highlighted line after line of our outgoings versus their demands. He tried to negotiate, tried to find a loophole, but I had laid out the numbers, clear and undeniable. There was no room, no flexibility. Finally, Ben let out a long, defeated sigh. Okay, he mumbled, turning away from the screen. Okay, you're right. We can't. I'll tell him. His shoulders slumped, weighted by the looming awkwardness of disappointing his best friend. I felt a rush of relief, a fragile victory in the face of what felt like a relentless onslaught. But it was quickly overshadowed by a deepening resentment, not just towards Marcus, but towards Karen too, for creating this extravagant monster of a wedding that was steamrolling over our financial boundaries and emotional peace. They were supposed to be our friends, yet they had placed us in this impossible position, forcing us to choose between our friendship and our future. The air in our living room was thick with the weight of that unspoken truth. Ben eventually mustered the courage to make the call to Marcus, retreating to the quiet solitude of our bedroom. I could hear the low murmur of his voice through the closed door, punctuated by silences that stretched like elastic bands. When he emerged, his face was a mask of strained composure. He understood, Ben said. avoiding my gaze as he flopped onto the couch. He said he knew it was a big ask, and he appreciated us being honest. But he sounded really disappointed, and he said Karen was less understanding. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course she was. It's never about the people, is it? Just the spectacle. Ben just sighed, staring blankly at the TV's power-saving screen. The silence that followed was different now, laced with a new kind of tension between us. It wasn't anger, but a quiet grief for a friendship that felt like it was fracturing under the strain of someone else's extravagant demands. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a strange blend of anticipation and dread. We skipped the shower, sending a small, beautifully crafted wooden serving board, something practical and timeless, definitely not from their registry, along with a heartfelt card. I deliberately avoided checking if they'd acknowledged it. My focus was now solely on navigating the actual wedding weekend, with whatever shred of sanity I had left. The day arrived. The wedding was held at a sprawling country club, naturally, miles from anywhere affordable. Ben looked sharp in his rented tux, though the subtle sheen of resentment still clung to him from the financial hit. As we navigated the pre-ceremony mingling, I felt an invisible wall around us. Other groomsmen and their partners, fresh from their whirlwind trips to Mexico and Miami, exchanged knowing glances and inside jokes. We smiled politely, made small talk, but the camaraderie that had once been so natural felt forced and superficial. Karen, resplendent in white, greeted us with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So glad you could make it, Ben. Marcus was so sad you missed the bachelor trip. It was absolutely epic." Her gaze flickered to me, a hint of something unreadable. Pity? Judgment? In her expression. "And Alara, I hope you liked the shower gift. So generous." It felt less like a thank you and more like a subtle jab, a reminder of what we hadn't done. I merely offered a tight-lipped smile. "It's beautiful, Karen. We wanted to get you something truly special for your home." Ben, ever the peacemaker, quickly changed the subject, asking Marcus about the ceremony details. But the undercurrent of awkwardness persisted. The ceremony itself was lovely, in a meticulously curated over-the-top sort of way. During the reception, as the champagne flowed and the band played, I watched Ben. He was trying his best, laughing with the other groomsmen, dancing with me, but I could see the struggle in his eyes. He was loyal, but he was also hurt and exhausted. This wedding wasn't just a financial drain, it was an emotional one, forcing him into choices he never wanted to make. Later, as the night wound down, Marcus found us by the bar. He clapped Ben on the shoulder. "A little too hard. Thanks for being here, man, really means a lot." His eyes lingered on Ben, then flicked to me. "Look, about everything. I know Karen got a bit carried away. And I get it, budgets and all that. No hard feelings, right?" Ben immediately leaped into reassurance. "Of course not, man. You know you're my best friend." I, however, took a beat. My internal protective streak flared. "We value our friendship, Marcus," I said, my voice calm but firm. "And we value our financial security." It was a lot to ask, and we had to make the choices that were right for us. Marcus gave a slightly uncomfortable chuckle. "Yeah, well, it's all over now." He turned back to Ben. "Just glad you could still be here for the main event." We left the reception feeling an odd mix of relief and emptiness. We'd survived. We hadn't broken the bank entirely. But something had fundamentally shifted. Our friendship with Marcus, once so easy and unconditional, now felt conditional. Conditioned on our willingness to participate in a consumerist circus. Driving home in the quiet solitude of our car, Ben reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Alara," he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for holding firm. You were right about all of it." I squeezed his hand back, a heavy sigh leaving my lips. "I never wanted to be right about this, Ben. I just wanted us to be able to celebrate our friends without sacrificing our future for it." The wedding was over, but the quiet reverberations of its demands continued. We had preserved our savings, but at what cost to a decade-long friendship? Only time would tell if Marcus and Karen's perfect experience had been worth the quiet, nearly imperceptible chasm it had created between us. I knew one thing for certain. Our boundaries were now set in stone, reinforced by the uncomfortable lessons of the past few months. And if future events tested them again, I would be ready. The quiet hum of the engine was a balm against the lingering echoes of the reception. Ben and I drove in silence for a while, the exhaustion of the day finally settling in. My mind, however, was still racing, replaying fragments of the opulent chaos we'd just escaped. It hadn't just been the financial drain, though that was a persistent background hum. It was the frantic energy of it all. From the moment we'd arrived, the air had crackled with a tension that had little to do with joyful anticipation. The schedule, painstakingly printed on gold leaf cards, almost immediately went off the rails. Florists frantically rearranged an arch that wasn't quite symmetrical enough for Karen's last-minute critique, while event coordinators barked into headsets, their faces tight with stress. I remembered watching Ben, looking sharp but increasingly harried in his tux. He'd been pulled away from our table countless times for one last-minute groomsman duty or another, ushering late guests, fetching forgotten cufflinks from the bridal suite, even being dispatched to find a specific brand of sparkling water for Karen's mother. Each time he returned, his shoulders were a little more slumped, his smile a little more forced. Marcus, too, despite being the groom, had looked utterly overwhelmed, a deer caught in the headlights of his own hyper-curated event. I'd seen him trying to placate a tearful Karen about a misaligned napkin fold, then turned to Ben with a look that screamed for rescue. It wasn't a celebration, it was a performance, a meticulously staged production where every participant, including the guests, felt like a prop. The endless parade of expensive food we barely touched, the designer gowns that swept the floor, the towering floral arrangements that seemed to mock, the forced smiles, it all felt less like a genuine expression of love, and more like an extravagant exhibition of wealth and demanding expectations. The small, carefully chosen gift we'd brought, tied with a simple ribbon, had felt utterly insignificant, almost like a token ransom payment to be allowed entry into this gilded cage. "I think I need a month of silence," Ben mumbled, breaking the quiet. He reached for my hand again, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my knuckles. "And maybe a week-long nap." I chuckled. A dry sound. You and me both. We definitely earned it. The coming weeks proved the quiet reverberations of the wedding's demands hadn't stopped at the county line. Calls from Marcus became less frequent, more perfunctory. The easy, spontaneous banter was replaced by awkward silences and strained attempts at normalcy. Karen, predictably, never acknowledged the gift beyond her initial backhanded comment. It felt like walking on eggshells, each interaction a delicate negotiation around the unspoken chasm we'd discussed in the car. One evening, Marcus called, excitedly recounting a lavish post-wedding brunch Karen had planned. He hesitated, then blurted, "You guys should have been there, it was amazing." Karen even mentioned that maybe, next time, if there's a chance for a trip or something, it'd be great if you could just swing it. I caught Ben's eye across the kitchen table. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. My protective streak, now honed to a fine edge, vibrated. "That brunch sounds lovely, Marcus," I said, my voice carefully neutral, stepping in before Ben could offer a vague apology. "We're just focusing on staying local for a while. Our priorities are a bit different these days, you know?" There was a beat of silence on the other end, then a strained laugh. "Right, yeah, sure, totally get it. Adulting, huh?" But the understanding in his voice felt hollow. A practiced response rather than genuine empathy. After he hung up, Ben let out a long breath. "Thank you for that," he said, looking at me with exhausted gratitude. I didn't know how to say no without sounding like a jerk again. "You don't have to," I replied, walking over to him and wrapping my arms around his waist. "That's what partners are for. We're a team. And our team has non-negotiables now." The chasm between us and Marcus didn't widen into an unbridgeable canyon overnight. It was more like a slow, almost imperceptible erosion. Invitations still came, but they were for events that felt increasingly out of sync with our values. Expensive dinners, last-minute weekend getaways that required flights, exclusive club nights. Each time we politely declined, offering genuine but firm reasons related to our budget or our preference for quieter, more meaningful gatherings. Our friendship with Marcus didn't die, but it undeniably transformed. It shed the easy, spontaneous intimacy of its youth, becoming something more formal, more distant. We learned to differentiate between true friendship and social obligation. And in that quiet space, Ben and I grew even closer. Our bond strengthened by the shared experience of standing firm, of choosing our financial security and our peace of mind over the fleeting approval of others. Our home, filled with the simple, meaningful things we'd carefully curated, felt more secure and authentic than any lavish country club ever could. And for us, that was the greatest celebration of all.